That's the whole point of this deck. It's meant to be annoying. Oh yeah, it's because it wasn't here.
Oh god, not another one. Serious?
Finally, something I can use. Yeah, I don't think we get rid of your face. Not knowing what it is.
I know. I know. I'll be surprised if I get this one. Rare? How many cards? Dang! That many? If it doesn't like that, then... Wait, how many does that make me allow? Summon? Oh look, bitch, I don't care! Wait, is that true? Wait, you turned them dark? What does that do to them? Yeah? GG. I think I'm gonna do one more round. Let me re-edit the deck real quick. No. I'm just trying to work something up. Trust me, I've ran into some decks that were fucking infuriating. Oh, I have a question for you. How would you be able to defeat this? An armor protector dragon with dragon shield. Use Trevor. Because it's funny, because this face-up equipped cards you control cannot be destroyed by this card effect. This card gains 500 for each equipped card equipped to this card.
Well, to be fair, the reason why I said Trevor was because Dragon Shield just allows you to protect your monster from being destroyed. It doesn't protect it from being bounced back from the hand. And since all your spell and trap cards go to, Dragon Shield can't protect you. Literally.
I know I'll have tomorrow or today when I wake up. I know I'm going to be working on the deck a little bit more since I know what I'm thinking of. I know what I'm going to be doing. I don't know.
I'm just going to say, that wasn't a bad play.
Oh, I know.
Just, did you just, you notice how every time you come this hair close to being me, my deck just bounces right back and says, fuck. That's all bad
Yeah. Yeah. Ooh, I can get another one. Ooh, I can get two. More cards. I can get another one of those girls that you were telling me to get. But I also saw a blue ice that I don't have that I need. Yeah, I've been moving some cards out of the equation. I took out Crystal Dragon. I took a lot of the cards out that weren't going to be used.
Okay. I'm going to say this right now, take out the
Who? Solid Dragon?
Hey, what's wrong with Solid Dragon? Is it bad to have it on?
Well, for one, it's just clogging up the deck where there's not enough small monsters to outweigh the big monsters. You gotta have enough.
Shit, I got a lot of monsters that are just 1 star, 3 stars, 4 stars, 1 star. Like 1 6 star. Or 8 stars. There's like 6 8 stars. Yeah.
What you need is Blue Eyes Alternative Dragon, Blue Eyes Chaos Dragon.
Which I got Chaos Dragon.
Chaos.
I got that one too.
You need to focus more on the rituals than your attack power. The rituals is where it's at. You know, this deck was meant to be a ritual power. Now,
Yeah. It's also good to get high level monsters out on the field pretty quickly too. Sometimes.
want me to tell you a little secret?
Sure.
The best decks in the world are low-level decks.
Yep. Monsters and traps. Oh yeah. Yeah.
You want me to send you a fucking image of my Blue Eyes deck to give you a hint of what the fuck
Yeah.
Okay, this is not meant to be a trap heavy deck, it's meant to be spell heavy. Oh shit.
fuck? Damn. Oh. Damn, too perfect. No, I wasn't expecting you to pull out Raigeki so quick. Ooh, that would have been so helpful at first. Yes, but the part I needed, the ash blossom. Dude.
I just wanted you to play with that action block.
Well, at least I'll be able to have two of them now. all I'm gonna do. GG. Night, man. I'll see you later.
it right there. Have you been thinking about starting a side hustle to make some extra cash? But don't skip this ad just yet. First of all, for free when you could be getting paid for watching viral videos. In fact,
Jason Voorhees' horrifying backstory, destruction of innocence by society, Friday the 13th franchise explored. Created by Victor Miller and Sean S. Cunningham, Friday the 13th is a massive slasher film series that has earned over $755.6 million, only second to Halloween. The movies revolve around a young boy named Jason Voorhees, who became the victim of social bullying and witnessed the decapitation of his own mother. The incident left such a mark on him that he turned into a serial killer. Since the release of the first installment in 1980, he has gone to various places like hell, dreams, and even space to live and breathe in his natural instinct. Today, Marvelous Videos is paying homage to this great cinematic monster by deep diving into all the films that Jason ever appeared in. James, pitchforks, and other sharp objects, as Jason Voorhees is on the way. Before we go into our explanation, here's a small request. If you want the content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. For us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Childhood of horrors. The 13th of June 1986 to Elias and Pamela Voorhees. As a child, Jason was diagnosed with hydrocephalus, a brain disease in which the body produces excess cerebrospinal fluid. This condition led to the balance in Jason, with a deformed face, enlarged head, and stunted mental growth. Jason then quickly learned to behave like other children. This meant that he would be the subject of bullying at the hands of the school kids. As such, Pamela kept him within the confines of the house, separated from the entire community. Jason grew up on the outskirts of the city Crystal Lake. Despite his limited and decelerated mental growth, one thing that Jason learned was that if he found his mother, all was going to be well. This unquestioned, unconditional love for her would ultimately become the reason for Jason's gruesome crimes. He must realize that his mother's decision to keep him away from society was an equal contributing factor. In 1957, Mr. and Mrs. Christie owned a summer camp near Crystal Lake, and they recruited Pamela as the camp's cook. Desperate for money, she took the role but was worried about her son. He had never seen or met many people in his entire life, let alone become friends with kids his own age. With no money to afford a babysitter, Mrs. Voorhees took her 11-year-old to the camp. Mrs. Voorhees' fears were about to turn into reality. Young Jason would spend most of the time with his mother instead of gelling with the others, and this led the summer camp kids to believe that Jason was a mama's boy and an easy target for bullying. Jason's unusual face brought him the unwanted spotlight, and his white mask was not helping either. A swarm of kids surrounded Jason, causing him to panic and run to the dock, but the kids were catching up. In a desperate attempt to save himself from his little tormentors, Jason jumped into the lake and presumably drowned, but his body was never recovered. Where were the camp counselors all this time? Well, they were busy making love instead of keeping a strict eye. After the incident, Pamela lost her mental peace and stability and sought to ensure that the camp never reopened and no other kids lost their lives. When the camp opened next year in 1958, she murdered the counselors Claudette Hayes and Barry Jackson because she accused them of Jason's death. When it opened again in 1962, the water was found to be unsuitable for public use. Following this, there were random fires throughout the 60s and the 70s in and around the surrounding properties. These strange events led the locals to dub it Camp Blood, and though the needle of suspicion pointed towards Pamela, there was no substantial evidence against her. In murder of Jason's innocence, the police ran a combing operation in the lake to find Jason's body, but they came up with nothing and the case was closed. Even Pamela believed that her son was dead, but somehow Jason had survived the drowning. He probably washed up on another end of the lake and lived on. It's not possible that he swam to the shore because his mother clearly said that he wasn't a good swimmer. It's also possible that he didn't at all know how to swim. The second film tells that Jason lived in a shack deep inside the woods. Now the question arises, how did he get there? We'll come to that in a bit. So Jason had no idea how to seek help or communicate with others and somehow ended up in the shack where he probably waited to be rescued by his mother. While Jason grew up presumably by himself, his mother was busy slashing young men and women. They never got the opportunity to see each other, at least until she died. It's possible that Jason started to believe that his mother passed away or was never coming, and he was on his own. He started to thrive on whatever edible things he could salvage from nature, be it edible plants and fruits, and sometimes meat from hunting small animals. The only good thing that came out of the events was that Jason became self-sufficient and independent of his mother's constant guidance. From a lonely child, Jason had transformed into a recluse adult with a crude lifestyle. Now, coming back to our initial question, how did Jason end up in a shack? And how did an 11-year-old with reduced mental capacities manage to survive the woods and live on his own? We believe that Jason was rescued by someone from the town of Crystal Lake. It could have been anyone, including Crazy Ralph, but we can't say who. We came up with the conclusion of a rescuer because Jason, in his later life as a mass murderer, didn't just showcase skilled weapon use, but also learned how to set traps and scare his victims before murdering them. For example, he scared Alice by keeping Pamela's decapitated head in the fridge. How did he come up with such an idea? The only logical explanation is that the young boy was picked up by someone and made to live in the dilapidated shanty. However, it is also a possibility that Jason's new guardian never intended for him to become a ruthless murderer. The rescuer only wished for Jason to learn hunting skills so that he could survive the woods on his own. But once Jason saw that his mother was dead, in fact murdered, he used these very hunting skills to wreak havoc on the trespassers and guests who came to the sleepy town of Crystal Lake. Number 1. A Mother's Revenge on Friday the 13th, 1980. As we mentioned earlier, Camp Crystal Lake saw its first murder in 1958 when an assailant killed two counselors named Claudette and Barry in cold blood when they sneaked out to make love. After the event, the owners, Mr. and Mrs. Christie, shut the camp. However, their son Steve never intended for him to become a ruthless murderer. The rescuer only wished for Jason to
the video editor that can do more. They're not just
hunting skills so that he could survive the woods on his own. Once Jason saw that his mother was dead and in fact murdered, he used these very hunting skills to wreak havoc on trespassers and guests who came to the sleepy town of Crystal Lake. another ride from an unseen person who chases her into the woods and slashes her throat. Apart from the counselors, Steve also employed a few teenagers to help him with the construction because the deadline was just around the corner. Ned was the first victim of the film, whose body was dumped just above the bunk bed on which Marcy and Jack were having the time of their lives. After Marcy goes to the washroom, the killer kills Jack with an arrow and then follows Marcy and slings her with an axe. Bloody disgusting. All this while Steve had been away to stock supplies because a thunderstorm was approaching. He returned only to be stabbed by the killer. Alice and Bill are all that's left, but Alice later finds Bill's body pinned on a door with arrows. Horrified by the scene, Alice manages to flee out into the open, only to be picked up by Mrs. Voorhees, who introduces herself as a friend of the Christie family.
He did it! Oh my God!
Mrs. Voorhees then narrates Jason's story and reveals the dark past that Crystal Lake was hiding within its depths. She reveals how she had been the killer and attempts to kill Alice, who manages to overpower her and ultimately decapitate her with a machete. The film ends with Christie rowing away in a canoe when Jason himself seemingly attacks her. Upon waking up at a hospital, she's informed by a police sergeant that they didn't find Jason or his body. The film was heavily criticized by critics for its resemblance with other horror classics like John Carpenter's Halloween. However, it is beyond doubt that 4 decades later, Friday the 13th and Jason Voorhees have become the turning points of the genre, specifically slasher and stalker films. Made at a budget of just over $500,000, it earned a whopping $60 million and gave stiff competition to hits of 1980 like The Shining and The film's commercially popular success allows its dad to strong actors like Amy Jane as Alice and Vincent Palmer as Mrs. Voorhees. Of course, the first factor that overshadowed the cast to make the film successful was the female antagonist, who people expected to be any piece of American or other gloves to be slashed with. Mrs. Voorhees revealed herself as the killer, and people were taken aback. Jason, but an unseen assailant overpowered him before he could do that. As is normal with people in horror films, Jeff and Sandra decide to sneak into Camp Crystal Lake out of curiosity, but were thankfully saved by Police Officer Winslow. But later, Winslow himself gets clawed with a hammer by a man in a gunny sack. The real action begins from this point as Jason slits Scott and Mark's throats. Jeff and Sandra are sent to the other world with the help of a spear, while Victoria gets the good old knife. Lastly, Paul is dismembered by Jason, taking the kill count to 10. Only Ginny survives because she used her psychiatric knowledge to wear Pamela's clothes and distract Jason, allowing her to kill him. This film isn't any different from many of the early sequels of the franchise, but is still one of the most important entries because it revealed that Jason had survived and wasn't just a figment of people's imaginations. Number 3. Jason fills the lake with blood in Friday the 13th, Part 3, 1982. The film begins right after the events of the previous installment. Jason goes to a store to change his bloody clothes. Of course, he doesn't have any money to pay for them, so he just thinks it fit to kill the owners. Meanwhile, a girl named Chris and her friends come to Chris's old home in Camp Crystal Lake, where she was attacked by a masked man a couple of years ago. The event traumatized her so much that she was forced to leave town. She is back because she apparently friends Shelly and Vera get into an argument with bikers named Fox, Loco, and Allie. They follow them to Chris's barn, but Jason was already taking refuge there, and he impaled Fox and Loco with his leaving Allie black and blue. Jason slices shut his throat and takes his hockey mask to cover his hideous face. He executes two places and then fires one. He shoots Vera in the eye socket, slashes the hands, kills pregnant Deborah with a knife. The pregnant Jennifer Sheldon has his own son. Charles meets his death through electrocution. And lastly, Jason stabs Children's firearm. Only Chris, Rick, and an almost dead Ellie remain alive towards the end. Jason shows his great strength and crushes Rick's skull with his bare hand. It's important in those jungles. We need violence. Allie makes the last lethal attempt to kill Jason. She's out once and for all with a machete. This distraction gave Chris the opportunity to attack Jason with an axe. Finally, Chris takes a computer and drifts into the middle of the night. It is a nightmare about the nakedness body of Jason gets his famous hockey mask and secondly, bulks up into a muscle monster. Visiting the trend that continues to response. The kill count in this one goes to 13. The favorite one is Jason using his blue straight to smash Rick's head into a pulp. The film remained essentially grounded in its former installments, but added a few more pointy objects for Jason to use. Also, this was the first entry in the franchise to be theatrically released in 3D. Number 4. Jason dies, or does he? Friday the 13th, the final chapter, 1984. Right after the events of Part 3, the police arrive at Chris's house and take Jason's body to the morgue. However, as he wasn't dead, he broke out of the place and on his way out, sliced the coroner Axel with a hacksaw. Later, the nurse Robbie was greeted with a scalpel. The next day, another group of teenagers arrives at Crystal Lake to have their fates sealed at the hands of good old Jason. The friends arrive at Crystal Lake and meet Trish and her little brother Tom. Today, the only way to watch Scran at home is on digital. Ready? Go. Screen fire. Tommy, who has a fascination for monsters and villains. At night, the visiting pals throw a party that Trish attends. Not surprisingly at the party, instead of booze, blood starts to flow. While Samantha goes down due to Jason's machete, Paul takes a hit with a spear gun on his groin. Terry is hunted with a pitchfork, and Trish's mom Tracy is killed off camera. Trish goes looking for her, where she meets Rob, who tells her that he's the brother of one of Jason's victims, and tells her that Jason is still alive and he was there to exact his revenge. The next ones to go are lovers Jimmy and Tina. After taking his kill count to 12, Jason kills Rob with a garden claw. Tommy and Trish uses his knowledge of films and Jason's legend to shave his head. Using this opportunity, Trish slams Rob's machete on Jason's face, but only manages to remove his mask. Ultimately, it was Tommy who picked up the machete and hacked Jason to his final death. Or did he? The film ends with Tommy embracing Trish at the hospital, but the boy has a maniacal smile on his face. The producers wanted to make this one the final installment of the Friday series, and hence it was titled The Final Chapter. But we know how wrong they were. This one was important because it introduced a young Corey Feldman as Tommy Jarvis, whose character would go on to become Jason's arch enemy in future films. Also, this was the last flick to start immediately after its predecessor's plot. Number 5, Jason and the Child, and Friday the 13th, A New Beginning, 1985. The evil look on little Tommy's face was not for nothing. He brutally murdered a prolific serial killer, and the memories of the incident manifested themselves as nightmares and panic attacks. He attended various psychiatric institutions and finally ended up at the Pinehurst halfway house that was headed by Dr. Matt Letter and his assistant Pam Roberts. Tommy meets a bunch of other kids at the institution. That same night, someone murders 2 men after their car broke down. As time passes, more murders come to the fore, and a waitress and her boyfriend meet the same horrific fate. The modus operandi of the killings match that of Jason Voorhees, and the police theorize that he's back from the dead to resume his murderous ways. Meanwhile, Tommy himself becomes one of the suspects because of his troubled past and connection with Jason. The next day, lovers Tina and Eddie go into the woods to have a bit of canoodling, despite being forbidden to venture out of the institution's premises. Naturally, such disobedience is bound to bear brutal consequences. The first one to go is Tina, and then Eddie meets with a similar fate. Meanwhile, Tommy, Pam, and another teen, Reggie, go to meet Reggie's brother, Demon. Somehow, Tommy gets into a fight with someone and runs into the woods after realizing that he's committed a mistake. As Pam and Reggie go to look for Tommy, more killings take place back at the outhouse. Soon, Reggie and Pam discover several corpses in Tommy's room, and not far from long, they witness a resurrected Voorhees. After a fierce battle, the teens manage to kill this resurrected Jason, only to realize that he was one of the paramedics who arrived when Joey was killed. The police reveal that this man was Roy Burns, Joey's father, and he sought revenge for his son's death after getting inspired by Jason's story of avenging his mother. The film ends with Tommy recovering at the hospital. He initially faces his fears and fights his hallucinations, but when Pam arrived to meet him, he hid behind the door wearing a hockey mask and holding a knife. Is he the new Jason? What's beautiful about the film is that it not only honors the previous 4 installments by using pointy and sharp things to commit the murders, but also carves out a thrilling path for itself into uncharted territories of copycat killings. Interestingly enough, the copycat killer's mask had blue stripes on it, unlike Jason's hockey one. So, for an ardent Jason fan, the film would not have been that much fun. The violence and gore are copious, with a kill count of 22, more than any of its predecessors. Despite the 22 bodies, the blood is fairly less. But don't you worry, because that's been made up for by the gratuitous amounts of skin show and humor. So, if you're in the mood to appreciate the beauty of a bad movie with a little story but a lot of laughs, A New Beginning is the way to go. Number 6. Jason meets his adversary in Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives, 1986. After what happened at Pinehurst Halfway House, Tommy started feeling better. The hallucinations had reduced, but not gone. Following his release, he decided to go to Crystal Lake Cemetery, where Jason was buried, with the intention of burning Jason's body and facing his fear. Tommy tagged along with his friend Alan, and they reached the town's cemetery on a stormy night. They dig up the corpse, and Tommy experiences violent hallucinations about Jason. In a fit of rage, he impales the serial killer's body with metal rods. But just as he does it, lightning strikes the rods, and Jason comes to life as an undead revenant. Jason kills Alan, and Tommy manages to flee and inform the sheriff, Mike Garris, that Jason is back. However, Mike knows about Tommy's past and assumes that he's been hallucinating again. Tommy is arrested and put behind bars. Meanwhile, 2 camp counselors, Darren and Elizabeth, are killed by Jason. Mike's daughter Megan arrives at the police station the following day to file a missing report for her friends Elizabeth and Darren. Tommy warns again, but no one pays heed to him. Later, Jason goes on to kill 4 more people and steals their machete. Jason also realizes that he now has superhuman strength, courtesy of his undead nature. The town of Crystal Lake had been renamed Forest Green as the residents didn't want to be reminded of the evil crimes that Jason had committed.
Ads on YouTube must be so annoying. But with 3 clicks, you can install an ad blocker and you'll never see ads again. Step 1, go to adblocker360.com. Step 2, click on Add Extension. Step 3, confirm. All done. No more ads will be shown.
There are more ways to PayPal. There are more ways for me to break up purchases with Pay in 4.
There are more ways for you to explore crypto with confidence.
And there are more ways to say thanks.
In the town, as children started arriving at Camp Forest Green, Things begin to get serious and the killings more frequent. Mike realizes that Megan likes Tommy, so he escorts Tommy out of the town and warns him never to return to Forest Green. That night, Jason kills the graveyard's caretaker and a couple who witnessed the murder. However, Mike starts to believe that Tommy has now gone insane and has begun committing Jason-style murders. Tommy convinces Megan to help him kill Jason by luring him to the lake. The two agree on the plan, but Mike arrests Tommy on account of the murders. However, Megan breaks him out of the station and they both reach the camp, where Jason had killed the counselors but spared the children. Jason attempts to kill Megan, but Tommy lures him into the lake and drowns him. Jason makes one last attempt to fight back, but this time, Megan does the trick. Tommy and Megan believe that Jason has finally been sent to his resting place, the water, but Jason is shown to be alive and awaiting another opportunity to strike. Jason Lives was the first film that transformed our titular serial killer into a supernatural monster, and from here on, he continued to remain a paranormal character. Despite being one of the least profitable films of the franchise, this sixth installment managed to earn positive critical reviews for its efficient depiction of violence and elevated grim humor. Number 7, Psycho vs. Psychic, and Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood, 1988. A young Tina Shepard attempts to escape the troubled household created by her alcoholic father. She gets on a boat and comes to Crystal Lake, and her father follows her. Due to her telekinetic abilities, she accidentally destroys the dock on which he was standing, and he drowns to death. Years pass, and Tina begins to suffer from the guilt of being the cause of her father's death. Tina's mother, Amanda, takes her back to Crystal Lake to be treated under the care of Dr. Cruz, who secretly wants to harness her telekinetic powers. So instead of teaching her to control them, he instead subjects her to verbal abuse disguised as experiments. Tina one day gets agitated and goes to the same spot where her father died many years ago and wished that he came back. However, this simple wish freed Jason from his chains and brought him back to the surface to resume his killing spree. Next to Tina's house, a group of kids celebrate the birthday of their friend Michael. At the party, a boy named Nick gets attracted to her, and why not? Birthday parties are probably meant for love affairs in Crystal Lake. Later, Tina has visions of Michael being murdered at the hands of Jason, and the visions turn out to be true. Later, Tina and Nick leave to find her mother, and Jason merrily crashes the festivities. Russell and Sandra are killed at the lake, Russell by an axe and Sandra by drowning. After Maddie finds Russell's body, Jason kills her with a sickle. Ben gets his skull crushed, but the award for the most creative kill has to be Kate's, whom he finishes by shoving a party horn through her eyes. The evil Dr. Cruz momentarily saves himself by using Amanda as a shield, but Jason gets him too. It all comes to a standstill when Tina finds Jason and electrocutes him using her powers, but Jason is not human anymore. He's a monster from the dead who survived years of drowning. Tina goes on to use her powers to burn him and trap him under the debris of a large structure, but to no avail. In a strange turn of events, Tina unwittingly summons her father's spirit, which rises from the depths of the lake and chains Jason once more. The film ends with Jason's mask being found alongside painful whispers. We think that the real reason why Jason kills teen victims is not really revenge. He's probably just tired of how annoying, cliched, and obnoxious these post-adolescents are. But trust us when we say this, The New Blood portrays its teens as the most irritating bunch of kids in the entire franchise, and by now, you know that that's saying something. Nevertheless, the film gave us Kane Hodder as Jason Voorhees. He would go on to play the character in 3 more films. Did you know that Hodder played another supernatural serial killer as Victor Crowley in the Hatchet series? We deep dived into the Hatchet series in another video, the link of which we'll leave in the description. Don't forget to check that out. Number 8, From Lakes to Sewers in Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, 1989. On a houseboat, a teenage boy named Jim scares his girlfriend Susie by telling her the story of Jason Voorhees. He goes a little far and uses a hockey mask and a knife, but the boat's anchor messes up Voorhees' chains and frees him. Next thing we know, Jason is on the boat and slashing the young couple. Meanwhile, Meanwhile, a cruise ship named the SS Lazarus sets sail with a class of senior year students and teachers Dr. Charles McCulloch and Colleen Van Duzen. Somehow, Jason comes aboard the ship and resorts to his natural instincts. He bashes wannabe rock star Jessica's head in with her own guitar before beating the chest open of a young boxer. Next, he chances upon Tamara right after she came out of the shower and stabs her with broken shards. Meanwhile, McCulloch's niece Rennie continues to see the visions of a young Jason on the ship. After Jason harpooned Captain Robertson thrice and slit his first man's throat with a machete, their bodies are discovered. Somehow Sean, Rennie, Colleen, and Charles McCulloch find a life raft and reach the mainland. However, upon arriving, Rennie gets abducted by two young stoners, and the rest split up to get help. However, Jason becomes Rennie's blessing in disguise when he kills the abductors, freeing her. They soon reunite and go to the police, but Jason kills the police officer as well. After this point, more people go down, and a chase begins between Rennie, Sean, and Jason. Jason chases the teens into a sewer that would be filled with toxic waste by midnight. Somehow they manage to escape him, and Jason gets drowned in the sewage.
Meet Lamar 11, the video editor that could do more.
Got a good thing, and I just can't get enough. Give me more, give me more. You got that thing that I'm looking for. Yeah, give me more. Action. This is it. Our own studio backlog.
Farmer's daughter. What?
My wife is not well. Perhaps it's after dark.
Something's wrong. You don't want to leave, do you? I still don't understand why you're doing this.
Because it is possible to make a good dirty movie.
And when it receded, Rennie and Sean saw what looked like a young Jason. The purpose of giving Rennie the visions about Jason's childhood is as unexplained as the fact that New York sewers get filled with toxic waste at night. Nevertheless, the film is supposed to be watched with the intent of witnessing another Jason Voorhees film and nothing more. And if you do that, you're golden. Friday the 13th, 8 was the beginning of the theater of absurd that franchise later became. Number 9, To Hell and Back, The Final Friday, 1993. A few years after the events of Manhattan, Jason resurrects and goes back to Crystal Lake and stalks a woman. How he manages to travel distances from New York to Manhattan without getting noticed is beyond us. However, poor Jason didn't know that the lady was in fact an FBI agent who was waiting for him to attack. He falls into a trap and is obliterated by SWAT and FBI teams. Jason's charred and dismembered body is then taken to the morgue for autopsy, but the coroner thought it to be fit to simply eat Jason's still beating heart. Again, why he would do so is beyond us. Nevertheless, after the tasty serial killer heart meal, the coroner gets possessed and flees the morgue, but not before killing 2 agents and another medical staff. The possessed coroner returns to Crystal Lake and murders 3 teens. What's a Friday film without a few teens getting slaughtered? He then killed one of the 2 officers sent to investigate the murders and possessed the other. Meanwhile, a bounty hunter named Duke finds out that only Jason's blood relatives can kill him and send him back to hell. But if he possesses such a person, then Jason will become invincible forever. The only such relatives are Jason's half-sister Diana, her daughter Jessica, and granddaughter Stephanie, who is Jessica and Steven's infant child. Jason goes to Diana's house but is attacked by Steven, but Jason manages to kill his half-sister. The police pin the blame for the murder on Steven and arrest him. Meanwhile, it is revealed Jessica's present boyfriend and reporter, Robert Campbell, is using Jessica to sensationalize the return of Jason Voorhees from the dead. Steve cannot let anything happen to his family and breaks out to reach them before Jason can. The possessed policeman reaches Robert and transfers Jason's heart into him. The Robert Jason then makes an attempt to possess Jessica, but gets interrupted by Steven, who takes her into his car. However, Jessica doesn't believe Steven's story. She leaves him and goes to the police. Jason reaches the police station and kills everybody standing between him and Jessica. But wait up, Steven is still in the picture. He thwarts Jason's plan, something that an entire bunch of cops couldn't do. This time, Jessica believes him and leaves with him to pick up Stephanie, but they discover that Jason has the child. If you thought that weird things were over, then hold on, mates. The Robert Jason once again transfers his heart into a police officer and attempts to birth himself through Stephanie, but Steven steals his thunder. By now, Jason's heart has turned into a demonic infant, which enters dead Diana's vaginal cavity to retake birth. Should we call it anti-birth? Oh wait, there's also a special mystical dagger that can truly kill Jason. Jessica manages to punch the dagger through Jason's heart, and the hands of Jason's victims tear the earth to pull him into hell. The film ends with Freddy Krueger's hand pulling Jason's mask into hell. We don't know what director Adam Marcus and writers Jay Hughley and Dean Lorey wanted to do with the script. We aren't sure if they knew what they did. Did they even watch the film after production and editing? Jason Goes to Hell involves mystical daggers, possession, a bit of mythology, and lastly, Freddy Krueger. Cinema has continued to show some weird stuff happening on screen, but turning a heart into a baby that crawls into someone's vagina to give birth again is just pushing the limits. Having said that, we are also of the opinion that the film is nonetheless a fun watch if you are viewing it with a group of friends on a Saturday night with a few chill ones. So good luck.
Up here!
Number 10. Psychopathic Freddy vs. Psychotic Jason 2003. For the sake of continuity, we will be exploring Freddy vs. Jason before Jason X, which is the 10th film and set in a futuristic world. Before we jump into it, let's just have a quick recap of Nightmare on Elm Street films, of which Freddy Krueger is the prime antagonist. So Freddy is basically a dream monster who kills people in their nightmares. The effects are very real and reflect in the victim's real life. However, Freddy can only attack and kill if people know about him and fear him. If you have forgotten him, then he cannot attack. After the events of the 1991 Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare, the residents of Springwood realized how Freddy functioned. They destroyed all things that belonged to or related to the killer, and those who remembered him were sent into quarantine. Now, because no one feared him anymore, Freddy was able to come back to the dream world. So he devised a plan to bring back from hell the immortal and equally horrific serial killer Jason Voorhees. Freddy appeared to Jason in the form of Pamela Voorhees and brought him to Springwood. Jason began his killing spree. Because the townsfolk thought that Freddy was back, this generated fear in their hearts. And Freddy got his powers back.